Alrighty, and we are live. Welcome to the 63rd episode of Coaster Time. I am your host, Carrick Gilgan, and for today's stream, I will be re-ranking my most anticipated roller coasters, both in North America and around the world. And I'll also be doing a bunch of other segments, including a news segment, Q&A, a quiz, guess the coaster, and more. So if you want a more specific schedule, you can make sure to check out the itinerary or the timestamps in the description down below. And so that's what's going to be going on for today. And actually, before we go into the news segment, I wanted to do a quick bingo card status update. This is something that I'm going to be doing in the streams from now on. This is pretty much completely new as far as the streams go. But for those who are unaware, pretty much and actually that kind of reveals the ones that got revealed there, but I'll go into those in a bit. I revealed the coasterhour bingo card last stream. It was the last stream of the year. This is basically things that I predict will happen. Some things are more sort of predictable. Other things are kind of going out on a limb. So we're trying to see how many slots I fill. And since I did that stream, a few of those slots have actually filled, so I'll go back to that page. And as you can see, we have gotten confirmation that Magic Mountain will be getting a Vekoma coaster next year through some filed plans that were revealed. So that's obviously very exciting. We got that only a few days into the year, so that was certainly good to see. And then a Hala Madrid POV has released. That is the wooden coaster out in Real Madrid World in Dubai. So that has been revealed. It wasn't a professional POV, but one did come out. I did post it on my Instagram story. So if you haven't followed my Instagram, make sure to follow that. I constantly update the bingo card on there, but I know not everybody is on the platform, so I wanted to more regularly update the bingo card during the streams this year, just so everyone kind of understands what's going on rather than me showing it at just the beginning and the end of the year. So I'm planning to update this every stream that I'm at least on my own. We'll see about guest streams. I'm not sure if it will make the most sense to do it then. But that's a quick bingo card update. Saw Civilian Satellite in the chat. Hello. And we'll move on pretty quickly here to the news. Just 5 different topics as per usual. And so the first one, kind of hinted at it already, but Six Flags Magic Mountain has filed plans or permits for a 2026 Vekoma Thrill Glider. That is going to be the new coaster that's going to be coming next year. This happened very early in the month, so obviously a lot of time has passed since we first found out about this, but this was found via the LA County site. We know it's a Thrill Glider because that is what it was labeled as, a Vekoma Thrill Glider. And while there's very limited information on this model, we are aware that it is a suspended launched motorbike coaster, so that's obviously something that's going to be very interesting to see how that rides. And then it has the capability of featuring inversions as well, so it'll be interesting to see if this one will feature inversions. I'm guessing it probably will. And then the other kind of interesting note here is when Six Flags put out last year that Magic Mountain was going to be getting a new coaster in 2026, they said it would be a first of its kind in North America. But theoretically, this coaster would be a first of its kind in the entire world unless there's another Thrill Glider that's also in production that we don't know about yet. So very fascinating. Just for my personal thoughts on that type of coaster coming to the park, obviously very limited information in terms of what the coaster exactly is going to look like. I think we have a pretty good idea of the layout, though. I've seen some mock-ups, and I think the cool thing about the Thrill Glider is the way you're going to be sitting in the train, because you're underneath the track and doing a motorbike setup, and you're also going to be taking inversions. It looks like there will be some solid airtime moments and drops. It's going to provide some very different sensations that you're not going to find on any other coaster, which I've come to appreciate a lot. riding rides like Pipeline, the surf coaster at SeaWorld Orlando, and even Tron Light Cycle Power Run, I would say, had some forces that, just considering the seating setup, were extremely unique. I think the Vekoma Thrill Glider will do a very good job, ideally, in providing those types of unique sensations and forces in that seating position. And as Civilian Satellite mentioned, it looks like it'll utilize the terrain, which that's obviously great to see. Seeing a coaster that utilizes the terrain at a park like Magic Mountain is always very much appreciated, and a very cool thing to have. So that's going to be the Vekoma Thrill Glider coming to Magic Mountain. Obviously, very big deal. And I'm very excited to kind of see more of it as we go, just because it's a very fascinating ride concept. Next, we move on to No Coaster Con. There were several updates. I'll actually take out the banner here. I kind of made a graphic showing all the stuff that was revealed at No Coaster Con. This is an event that Ace hosts, that they have presenters from the various different parks that give various updates about different projects and things going on. So we got some from Cedar Point. Tony Clark mentioned that Top Thrill 2 is scheduled to reopen on opening day as of when he presented. Zamperla is still modifying the trains, but the park is expecting to get trains back in the next few months. I actually just saw an interview today from Marcus Leshock. You can check it out on YouTube. He mentions that they expect the trains to come back by early March, so we will see if that happens in terms of getting Top Thrill 2 back on track. And then you have Siren's Curse. That's going to begin testing in May, or at least that is the goal. And that'll have an early summer opening, so obviously well after opening day. But that's what they are saying about that, as has been said previously about that early summer opening. As for Holiday World, Voyage, Legend, and Raven are going to be getting more retracking. Obviously, love to see that for 3 incredible wooden coasters. Six Flags Great America, they unveiled that Wrath of Rakshasa will have a flying bin system for loose articles, similar to what Yukon Striker at Canada's Wonderland has. So if you've ever been on that ride, or you've ever seen footage of the flying bin system, that's what you can expect to see at Wrath of Rakshasa. I've heard great reviews for that system, so that's very good to see. And then Batman the Ride is getting enhanced audio and other theming effects. I believe like smoke and other effects were included in that. So that's good to see the original Batman the Ride getting some love. And then Indiana Beach. This is actually maybe the most interesting one. They're going to add a second train to All-American Triple Loop, and they will have a backwards back car on certain days. I believe Mindbender had the same sort of deal, or the same thing, so I think that's why that's happening. So that's going to be a very unique experience for those who want to experience it. Doing a ride like that backwards, that should certainly be interesting, just experience overall. And then Cornball Express and Who's Your Hurricane are also getting retracking, so also nice to see that. Moving on to the Hershend Parks, Dollywood teased their 2026 attraction. They confirmed it will be in a building, and they specifically mentioned that kind of along the storyline, or the in quote, in terms of like the story that's going on, Ranger Ned is building some kind of storage shed back there, which lines up with the previous storylines they've established with Big Bear Mountain in that area. And then I should also mention here, I don't believe I mentioned it on the channel yet, but if you follow my Instagram, someone found in their Mock Rides book from IAPA that Mock Rides confirmed they are creating a new coaster for Dollywood. They mention it in that book. So there's a lot of speculation that this next attraction will be a Mock Rides powered invert. Obviously not confirmed, but that is what's speculated in a lot of circles. So, and honestly, just based on the price tag and what we know about it, I would highly expect that this is what it ends up being. Next, we have Silver Dollar City. They teased that something else is coming to the park for the 2026 season, in addition to the Silver Dollar City Resort. And that likely probably means a ride or an attraction. So that will certainly be something to keep an eye on. Probably a long way out from knowing what exactly that is, but if you're local in the area, maybe we'll see some activity or hear some rumblings pretty soon. I imagine teasing will probably start as well, so keep an eye out for that. But that's our No Coaster Con updates. And next, I'll go through the comments real quick. All American Triple Loop is already wild going forward, so going backwards is going to be ridiculous. Yeah, I was like saying, or not saying, but thinking that um, it already seems like a pretty crazy ride as is, so going backwards is definitely going to add an extra layer of intensity to the ride. Hopefully, with the restraint change, it'll be comfortable enough as well to where it won't be too uncomfortable. So we'll also be curious to see what the reviews are like for the backwards car. And then you mentioned that you enjoyed the powered inverts at Europa Park and Motion Gate. Yeah, it would be very nice to have one in the States. It looks very high quality. I've never ridden either of them, but it would be nice to have. And then all of a sudden, we would have two of these in North America, obviously in very different places, but with the other one coming to Bond Luxury Theme Park at Vedanta World in Mexico, that would be nice to see more of those kind of get spread around. So would love to see that for just the powered coasters in general. And then Frontier Coasters, I missed the comment earlier about the Magic Mountain coaster, but you mentioned a Kite Man theme. That would be hilarious. I don't think they'd go with it because it's such a obscure character in the mainstream, but that would be pretty funny for the suspended motorbike coaster. So we'll have to and we'll see what exactly the theme is with that. I imagine it'll kind of do with like those birds that they showed, but I'm very curious in terms of what the name and theme is going to be. Next, we'll move on to Aquila at Mandoria has opened. This is a custom Vekoma Indoor Family LIM launch coaster. Goes through the layout twice. The track length is only 1,460 feet, but that's for just times that by 2 because it goes through the layout twice. I think the overall ride duration is around a minute long, so definitely long enough. And from the POVs I've seen, this looks like an excellent coaster and a great fit for this park. This is also actually the largest coaster Mandoria has built. They currently have 4 now. And Aquila definitely looks like the largest one. It is based on track length, speed, and everything. It's got some nice theming interactions just based on the POVs I've seen. It's very fast paced. Looked extremely fun, and I just watched a review today actually from someone who had ridden the coaster over 100 times since it opened, and he said that it was a very, very good family coaster, one of the best he had ridden, and that it was surprisingly strong in the positive forces and airtime department. So it's like a good ride for both families and enthusiasts. And the crazy thing too is this has a 37-inch height requirement. So overall, this seems like a big winner for Mandoria. I'd love to see more parks get rides like this. Also, the fact that it's indoors is also really cool. So yeah, definitely seems like a really great ride and great fit for this park. Next, we'll move on to what I just dubbed uncertain park futures. Just kind of lumped in a few parks here where we got some interesting updates or events that have occurred. We'll start with California's Great America. We know this park is eventually going to close, but some extra things have happened. Last month, I think I mentioned that they shortened the park calendar, so they went from late May to the first week of January being their normal schedule to early April to late October being their new one for this year. However, we've actually seen other parks in the Six Flags chain shorten their calendars, so we'll see if that actually means much for California's Great America. They got rid of all seasonal events for the 2025 season. Again, we've been seeing some movement in terms of seasonal events for some other parks in the chain, but there haven't been any that have eliminated all their events for the 2025 season, so that's definitely an eyebrow raiser. And then Six Flags and Prologis filed an agreement to allow for lease termination as soon as June 30th of 2028. So it's actually even more sped up than it previously was. The option to extend it still remains. They could still extend it for 5 years afterward if they wanted. But the park would likely have to stop operations before that date, that termination date. So I'd expect that the park will close quite a bit sooner than that, June 30th, 2028 date, if things keep going in the way they're going. I mean, heck, you probably saw from the bingo card, but I have it as I think it's very possible this year could be its last year. I think I'm kind of backing off from that a little bit, but I definitely think next few years it's going to be gone. So if you're interested in visiting, I would probably try to go as soon as possible, but we'll have to wait and see what happens, or that might be a dangerous game to play with how Six Flags has been going as of late. So, like I said, if you're interested in going, the sooner you can go, probably the better. Next, we have Circus Circus Hotel and Casino, home to Adventure Dome and SpongeBob's Crazy Carnival ride. It has been put up for sale, and the owner of the casino, he bought it in 2019 for $825 million. He believes he can sell it for $5 billion, as the land is very valuable, according to him, in a transforming Las Vegas. It's 102 acres as well, so pretty notable plot of land there. Speculation is that the plot of land that the resort occupies, if someone buys it for that much, or just buys it in general, it could be turned into something else, which would potentially bring an end to Adventure Dome and Circus Circus. And the person who currently owns Circus Circus did something very similar with a previous hotel and casino, the Frontier Hotel and Casino, which he bought in 1998 for $165 million, and then he sold it later in 2007 for $1.2 billion, and then that casino was demolished for redevelopment for the land, but that didn't end up going through, and that land actually is still empty to this day. So this is obviously a situation to keep an eye on if it gets sold. What could happen here? Because Circus Circus is seen very much as dated, so are its days numbered? Very much could be the case, which obviously would be unfortunate for the fates of Adventure Dome and the recently opened SpongeBob Crazy Carnival ride. So that would not be good. And then lastly, you have Rye Playland there on the bottom right. Their operator, Standard Amusements, they've been operating the park the last 3 years. They were only 3 years into a 30-year contract. They have terminated the contract after just disagreements with the county who owns the park over timelines, investment management, various other things. It was just not working out. And the operator is actually going to enter a legal battle with the county as they seek over $50 million in damages. So seems to be a very ugly split. The county, Westchester County, which owns the park as mentioned, they will get the park ready and open it in 2025, or that's what they claim. The park has a listed May 17th opening date, but just with that massive change, there are still concerns about a 2025 opening and the long-term future of the park, which is obviously something you don't want to see for a classic park with a classic wooden coaster and the dragon coaster, as well as several other classic rides. So obviously that is not good to see, but hopefully they'll be able to get through the situation and move on to a brighter future. And then lastly, we have the footer markings footer markings that have appeared at Galaxyland in Canada on Mindbender's former plot of land. Social media teasing has also begun, as shown here in this picture. This was a screenshot of a little clip they put out. But the interesting thing with the footer markings is that they're laid out in a way that indicates, or likely indicates, that this is a new roller coaster. Just the way it's spread out doesn't seem like it would be for a flat ride or something of that sort. There's been a lot of speculation in terms of manufacturers, but there was actually an interesting uh, potential clue that was pointed out by ML Designs on a Coaster Force forum, that the footer markings are actually marked in the same notation and format as the footers that we're seeing in the Six Flags Magic Mountain plans for the Vekoma Thrill Glider. So a lot of people have been thinking that based off that, this coaster could very well be from Vekoma. But it's also unclear if this notation and format is actually exclusive to Vekoma or if other manufacturers use it. If you're wondering what the notation was, an example that was given was F019B, so it has F at the beginning, three numbers, and then a letter. That's a notation that both these rides had. Like I said, to be determined if other manufacturers use that same notation and this is useless information or if this is actually a good catch. So, though I just think it's pretty interesting, and seeing a Vekoma at this park would definitely be very interesting. So that is going to be the news. There were someone mentioned Georgia Surfer being rethemed the Georgia Gold Rusher. There's a few topics I had to leave off that were interesting that happened this month, that being one of them, along with the Six Flags All Park Passport going into effect. Obviously, that's a pretty big one. You also had the mock launch coaster at Aqua Show in Portugal that went vertical, and that's notable just because we have kind of a better idea now that it's going to be more of a traditional mock launch coaster. And then those I think were probably the three most notable ones that I skipped, but there definitely were some other stories here and there as well. Um, but yeah, the Georgia Surfer one was very surprising because everyone I think was in the mindset that Georgia Gold Rusher was going to be a retheme of their mine train. And then obviously, well, it ended up being a retheme of their coaster that hasn't even opened yet, and now they're gonna have to repaint it and retheme it all before it opens. Very fascinating decision, honestly. I'm very curious if part of the reason was to retheme it, besides, I guess, cohesiveness with the area. That was one of the reasons given, is that it doesn't seem like you're actually going to get wet on this ride, or that wet anyways. It might be more like a light misting. And so I'm curious if maybe they thought people would be disappointed uh, in not getting like super wet on that ride, just with the way it was being kind of marketed and shown. And then also if they were potentially turning off people who wouldn't want to get wet on a ride that ultimately it's not that big of a deal. So it's kind of a fascinating change for a lot of reasons. I mean, it's also really interesting because this is a coaster that's already been completely built and painted. So it's just very odd, I would say, in terms of them doing that, because even like some people brought up some other examples of rides that had already decided on a name and they changed it, or a theme and they changed it. I think Total Mayhem was the one that was getting brought up when that became Joker, but that coaster wasn't built yet, so that wasn't as big of an issue. That's, like I said, just very interesting. They decided to do that. But regardless, should be a fun ride for Over Georgia. I imagine this puts the possibility of it opening on opening day completely out of the question, though. So that would be an unfortunate part of that. A Vekoma could fit the type land plot well. Certainly could. I'm just curious if it is from Vekoma, what exactly they're thinking. Would it be more like a unique family launch coaster? Which, I mean, we've seen they can do pretty short track lengths, so they could probably get creative and make something cool. Is it this going to be more of a thrilling ride? That would be very interesting just to see, regardless actually of even who the manufacturer is. But even if it is Vekoma, I would still be very curious, and Do they go for more of the family coaster route because that probably better fits with their park currently, or do they want to have that signature thrilling attraction like Mindbender was, and that's where they go with that. It would just be very interesting to see either way they go, because I think there's good reason to go with either choice. Welcome to the chat, Coaster Evan, Off Jackson, and then yeah, there's a lot of these parks that have been doing the naming polls just to throw it in the trash, basically. Yeah, that is kind of funny. I hope that the person who at least came up with the Georgia Surfer name is still being compensated in some way. If there was some sort of reward for that. Because, I mean, I feel like that at least should still be deserved, even though they decided to go another route. But honestly, I think and at Peony Playland, I guess they also threw theirs out too. Um, I just kind of thought it was weird for Busch Gardens Williamsburg. They even went with a naming pool in the first place. It just seemed very out of place to do something like that. And I think they may eventually made the right decision to just go with like the Big Bad Wolf's Revenge. It was the name's actually a little longer than that, but I mean, going with that type of name, it seemed like that probably should have just been the pick from the beginning. So, um, yeah, that was interesting. Have I heard anything about Quantum Accelerator at New England? I know that parts were on site a while ago. I forget if it has gone vertical or not. I haven't heard anything about it super recently, though. If so, I can't say that it's I've heard any super recent updates, and I can't quite recall what stage they're at in the construction process. So I wouldn't know there. Quantum Accelerator hasn't gone vertical yet. Okay, yeah. So then parts got on site, and then they just that's at least as far as we know so far. So ideally, they could get working on getting it vertical and constructed pretty quickly here. It's not a super long ride, so theoretically they should be able to get it done pretty quick once they once they get going. How long is it actually, out of curiosity? 2,600 feet. That's actually a little longer than I thought. But hopefully they can get working on it and get going pretty quick. That would be ideal. Alrighty. I guess the next segment we will do will be our quiz. So, special thanks to Frontier Coasters, who made this quiz, as he has made several other quizzes. But pretty much how this works, you'll be answering the questions in the chat. Actually, this pretty much explains everything. Your first answer will be your basically only answer, so it's not like really worth trying to change it. And then yeah, no Google RCDB, ChatGPT, you get the gist. So we'll get going with our first question here. Actually, this is like just an example one, so but we'll get going with our first question. Very difficult quiz. I will just say straight off the bat. But the first question is, and actually I need to pull it up on my own computer because it's hard for me to see it based on the thing. What state is now home to the oldest SDC galaxy? And so your time starts now. Everyone's going for A. We'll see if that strategy pays off. Always is interesting to see how these games go in terms of sometimes everyone will kind of go for the same answer, and other times people will kind of go all over the place. But so far, everyone has put in A for this. You have about 20 seconds left to answer if you haven't already. The other ones will be shortened this. I just forgot to put the timer on when we started. But yeah, about 10 seconds to answer if you have not already. And the timer has run out. The correct answer here is B, Louisiana. So nobody got that first one correct. And we'll move on to the next question, which is, which of these defunct amusement parks lasted the longest? Timer starts now. And so, yes, the question is, which one of these defunct amusement parks lasted the longest? Already, we got our first answer in here. You have about 40 seconds to answer if you haven't already. Everyone's going to the same answer again so far. We'll see if this goes any better than the last time. But you have about 20 seconds to answer if you have not already. I can't speak on the pictures because I didn't make the quiz, so Frontier Coasters can chime in if the picture, whenever the pictures are a clue or mean anything. But the timer is about to run out. All right, timer has ran out. Correct answer here is A, Bellevue Park. That is the correct answer. So nobody got that one right. I think this quiz may be too difficult, but we'll move on to our next one, which is going to be question 3. Which of these Latin American countries has never built a wooden coaster? So out of all of these, which of these Latin American countries has never had a wooden coaster? Timer started 10 seconds ago, so guess away. You have about 30 seconds to answer if you haven't already. And we got our first answer in here. We actually have some differences this time around, so perhaps somebody will get an answer this time. But we will see. You have about 15 seconds left to answer if you have not already. Now about 10 seconds. And the timer has officially ran out. The correct answer here is D. Chile is the only one of these countries that has never had a wooden coaster. So first points will go to Jay and Coaster Evan. Both are on the board. And we'll move on to our next question, which is, which of these roller coaster models is extinct and not standing or in storage? Actually, I think all of these are pretty much just defunct, actually, so the storage part is not really relevant. So which of these roller coaster models is extinct? There are like no more of them. That is the question. The timer already started once I got onto this question, so if you haven't answered yet, you have about 25 seconds to do so. And we will go from there. Few different ones again. And you have about 10 seconds to answer if you haven't already. And if you just joined the stream and want to get involved in the quiz, it's still anyone's game at this point, so you can more than do that. The correct answer for this question, though, is going to be C, the Pinfari Z78. The Intamin Twist and Turn Coaster, there's actually still some operating. Pinfari Big Apple, they're is, I believe, one operating, and the Vekoma Swing turns, uh, there's at least one operating. So nobody got that one. Yeah, this quiz I think was too difficult. But perhaps this one will be a little easier. Maybe, maybe not. Actually, I don't know, but we'll see. Where was Wild Thing at Wild Waves originally from? I've started the timer, so answer away when you have your answer. Alrighty, first few answers have come in. So far, everyone's on the same page here. Will we get anything different? If you haven't answered yet, you have about 30 seconds to do so. It's difficult, but you're learning new things. I mean, yeah, certainly. I mean, honestly, that's me when I'm looking through these. I'm like, yeah, I would have gotten most of these wrong. But it's interesting to learn new stuff. You have about 5 seconds if you haven't put it in already. And the timer has ran out. The correct answer here is A, Rocky Point. I think it's Rocky Point Park or amusement park specifically. That is where Wild Thing is originally from. So, and I think it's like from like Rhode Island or something. It's like something really crazy. Yeah, it was originally from Rhode Island, which is just crazy. But Civilian Satellite is on the board, and so is Jackson, and Evan takes the lead with 2 points. Alrighty, so we'll move on to the next question. True or false, Harry Traver built a coaster in South America? And the timer has begun. So that will be the question. Harry Traver is known for having made some pretty significant coasters back in the day. So that is... but the question, of course, is, did he actually build one in South America? So that is the question. And if you haven't answered yet, you have about 20 seconds. Split on this one, it appears. And you have about 10 seconds to answer if you haven't already. And the timer has now run out. And so the correct answer here is true. He did build a coaster, Montaña Russa, at Parque Shanghai in Rio in Brazil. It was a wooden coaster, only operated from 1938 to 1947. Take that back, it operated to 1962. It got relocated within the park. So actually, decently long life considering. 24 years, not too bad. Yeah, so the correct answer is true. Evan has a commanding lead at this point with 3 points, and Jackson now has 2 points. So maybe commanding lead isn't the right word, but has a lead, that's for sure. Alrighty. Which of these countries is home to the roller coaster in this picture? Guess away. That is the next question. Which of these countries is home to the roller coaster that you can see here in this picture? And I did start a timer. At this point, you have about 45 seconds to answer. We have our first answer, so answer away if you haven't already. You have about 30 seconds to put in your answer. What coaster is it? You'll find out. You have about 15 seconds to put it in if you haven't already. And the timer has run out. So the correct answer here is Indonesia. This is actually Racing Coaster, formerly known as Yamaha Racing Coaster at Trans Studio Bandung in Indonesia. This is very similar to the Mr. Freeze clones, just hasn't LSM launch and is newer, but it's kind of similar. It's pretty similar. So that is the correct answer. Looks like everyone who answered got it. So yeah, looks like it. Yeah. So I'll give a point to everyone. Evan has now 4 points. Civilian Satellite has 2 points, and Jackson has 3 points. Alrighty. Next, we'll move on to our 8th question, which is, which of these manufacturers has made the most coasters? Timer has begun, but which of these manufacturers has made the most coasters? I have actually no idea what this picture, if the picture helps or not, because I don't know what it is, but perhaps it's a clue. I'm not sure. You have about 30 seconds now at this point if you haven't answered yet. Few differentiations in the answers so far. But if you haven't answered yet, you still have about 20 seconds to do so. And like I said, for anyone who's watching the stream, even if you've come in late, if you still want to participate in the quiz, you can go for it. At this point, probably you would be playing for fun at this point, but as points wise, winner pretty much is already there, but we will see. ESPF Visa, that's the truth. But timer has run out, which gives us our answer, which is going to be Jinma Rides, otherwise formerly known as Golden Horse. And actually, Jinma, the word actually does mean Golden Horse, so there you go. But Jackson is correct, so Jackson and Evan are now tied. So at this point, well, we haven't gone to tiebreakers, so I won't go into the scenario yet. But yeah, Jinma Rides actually has a decent amount over everyone else. Although Intamin's actually second, which is surprising. But anyways, next we will move on, or actually, I'm trying to remember. I actually may have that off, but I did check this one. I think I remembered being surprised that one of the manufacturers had like way less coasters than I thought. Actually, no, sorry, Zamperla was second because yeah, Intamin doesn't have nearly as many as the others. Yeah, Jinma has built like over 400 coasters, which is just insane. Zamperla is just under 400. Intamin has only built like just barely under 200, and then Pinfari. Pinfari is weird because RCDB is not gonna have all the coasters they've made because they've obviously had a bunch of traveling coasters, but even then, their permanent installations they actually have under 200. So yeah, still would not be enough probably. Next we have question number 9. Which is, which of these roller coasters from before the 1950s is the longest? Pinfari and its army of wacky worms was not enough. There's actually a lot of companies that make wacky worms, so they kind of are in competition with a bunch of other manufacturers. I did not even see a single wacky worm coaster when I went to Italy though, so that was kind of disappointing. I know I didn't intentionally go to any parks or go to any parks, but still I was expecting maybe I'd find just some random one somewhere, but unfortunately no. Um, but yeah, so question 9 that is going. Timer is already at like 15 seconds, so left. So make sure to get your answers in if you haven't already. Probably shouldn't mention that the timer was already moving. But if you haven't answered yet, you have about 5 seconds to do so. And the timer has ran out, which gives us our, I didn't even say what the question was. It was which of these coasters from before the 1950s is the longest. Probably should have specified in track length, but I think that could probably be guessed. The correct answer here is C, Comet at Hershey Park, which gives Jackson the lead with 5 points. And then we'll move on to question number 10, which is going to be which of these roller coaster manufacturers has never built a coaster in South America? So that is the question. And obviously RCCA is not a answer here, but they have built a coaster in South America, which still exists, which is Montezuma right there. So if you didn't know, there you go. You have about 30 seconds to answer if you have not already. We have a few different answers here, so we'll see how this one goes. Yeah, a variety of answers. We'll see if anyone gets any of these correct. You have about 10 seconds to answer if you have not already. And the timer has, at this point, run out. The correct answer here is D, Mock Rides. Surprisingly, they have never built a coaster in South America. Chance Rides is a toboggan. Alan Herschel had something, I forget exactly what it was. And I think General Rides, they also had a coaster. I don't remember off the top of my head of what model it was when I checked, but all three of them have built coasters in South America. So Civilian Satellite gets a 3rd point, but we do have our winner at this point. Jackson is the winner, so congratulations. We can do some, yeah, there was, there is a, yep, that's it. It was an SVNO Monster Mouse, yep. So there you go. But we have some, just basically these would be tiebreakers, but just 2 extra questions. So pretty much that you can play for at this point. So we will do that. First one being, and actually I'll take the quiz winner off because I think it's going to get in the way. First one, which one of these roller coasters opened the same year as a Goofy movie released? Which, I mean, I would be completely in trouble if I was doing this because I don't know what year it released. So, and honestly, these coasters, some of them I have the years memorized, other ones I don't. So, yeah, a very difficult question. At this point, you have about 25 seconds to answer if you haven't already. These are just for fun. Doesn't really matter. I've only seen this movie once. I didn't care for it so much when I was younger. My brother really likes it though, so I might give it another shot at some point. Yeah, the problem is I'm too young for this one just because it came out before I was born. But everyone answered B, and everyone is correct. Cyclops is the coaster that opened the same year a Goofy movie release. Okay, yeah, that's impressive. Alrighty. So yeah, that's pretty good. Pretty impressive there. And then we'll move on to our last bonus question, which is going to be flat ride related. Which manufacturer did not design a rotor attraction or a rotor ride? All of these manufacturers have designed one, well, except for one. So which one of these has not designed a rotor attraction? The timer already started. You have about 40 seconds at this point if you have not answered. So guess away. Few different answers at this point, so not everyone will get this one correct. Based on that, you have about 20 seconds to answer if you haven't already. And the timer is about to run out here, just last few seconds. All right, that is it. Correct answer here is D, Huss Rides, or Hoos Rides. Still not entirely sure how it's pronounced officially, but that is the correct answer. SDC, actually, they do have rotors. In fact, I remember seeing the Turkish Twist at Canopy Lake Park is an SDC rotor, so there you have it. That would be an example of one. But yeah, that would be the correct answer there in Huss Rides, and that'll pretty much wrap up our quiz. So once again, Jackson, congratulations on winning the quiz. Now SPF Visa is making them. Yeah, and I could have ridden it at IAPA, but I chose not to. They had one of theirs at the event, and or at the expo, and I did not do it. I have not ridden the rotor. I don't have plans to. But yeah, they theoretically could have done one. Schwarzkopf was the one in the picture. Well, there you go. So it was a clue. If you knew what you were looking for. But now we'll move on to the first of two countdowns we'll be doing. I'll kind of split them up. But this will be ranking my most anticipated coasters in North America, or basically a re-ranking of sorts. So for those of you who follow the channel closely, or if you've seen it, you've already seen it. If you haven't seen it yet, I'd recommend doing so. But I released my top 200 coasters I'd ever ridden, just a POV countdown video over on my secondary channel, Coaster Hour Beyond. And so obviously that was ranking all the coasters I had ridden. But I realized I hadn't really done a countdown in a while, just kind of looking over my most anticipated coasters, and I'll actually go over the two main ones that I did years ago, and actually I'll just pull it up here. So just some previous lists I've done. Figured I'd go over these because there's a few coasters I've ridden. I made a video in 2019 going over my most anticipated coasters in the entire world. I've since ridden 3 of them, and then I also updated the list in a stream just for North America in 2021, and I've since ridden those coasters. Obviously, looking back for me, Voyage is my personal #1 coaster, so definitely had it too low in both of those lists. I don't really see anything beating it. I think it's absolutely outstanding. Hollywood Nights are not, but I mean, at Hollywood Nights, it's just on a different level. Steel Vengeance, it's my personal #3 coaster that I've ridden, so I think I was appropriately high there when I ranked it. Lightning Rod at Dollywood, when I first ranked it, it hadn't undergone changes. I think even by the time I ranked it in the second time around, they hadn't done a lot of the iBox stuff yet, so that affected, but it was still very good. My #6 overall coaster. Though I rode it with the launch. Don't know how that would change with the lift hill now. And then Velocicoaster is my number 5 coaster, so I actually did prefer it over Lightning Rod uh, just by a little bit there. So, and I was definitely, I'd say, too low on it looking back. And then there's just some other interesting rankings. I'm not going to be doing any upcoming coasters. Not going to be putting them here because of that 2021 list. You see Pantheon there. I put it there before it opened, just based on the testing footage and everything, where it was running like way faster than it actually ever did. Even then, I think it was too high, but yeah, I'm only dealing with coasters that have opened, so that's part of the reason why. And then also, for those of you in chat, obviously you've ridden different coasters, so if you want to just throw out the ones you're most interested in or your thoughts on the specific coasters I talk about as I go through the list, we'll do that. So that was previous lists. I'm not going to go through all these coasters. I'm basically just going to be talking about my main top 10, but just as a way to kind of keep track and have it here, I have a list of my 25 most anticipated North American coasters. I'm not going to go through these in depth, just wanted to have it here as a list. Also have a list of parks I've been to, so if you're wondering where certain coasters are or why I excluded them, it's probably because I've ridden them. Or maybe I did just exclude it. But this is like just the 25 from 25 to 11 that just missed out on my top 10. And then we will move on to the actual list. So, Coaster at P&E Playland. Yeah, I forgot to mention that. That one was in the old list, but obviously with its changes, I've lowered it way down because I've just heard it's a lot worse with the new restraint system. So it's not even on here anymore, which is kind of insane. But yeah, I've just heard not good things since they changed the restraint. So did not make the new one, unfortunately. But happy that you got to experience it prior to that, and that it was as insane as I've heard. So that is good to see. But I'll go into my top 10 list. My number 10 coaster I have here is Pantheon, Intamin LSM launch coaster, of course. Obviously, as I mentioned way back when, I think I just had it like way too high, but I still think it's a very good coaster, just from looking at it at least, and why I'm interested in riding it. Just an incredible collection of elements, from great inversions to incredible looking airtime. Specifically, the elements I want to experience the most are that swing launch sequence. Getting ejector airtime backwards is going to be insane. You got the back spike as well involved there, so that obviously looks very exciting. You got the top hat drop, which looks incredible. The outer bank till also looks very good, even if I've heard it didn't live up to the hype like some people expected. I mean, you're still getting airtime in that position, so that's going to be really good. And this ride also has a really nice looking 0G stall. Looks pretty long. It definitely looks to have some insane hang time. So, like I said, the pacing isn't what I thought it was going to be, so that's why it's been lowered on here. But it still looks fantastic, and definitely looks like the coaster that I'm most looking forward to at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. In a what looks like a very good lineup. So there you go. My number 9 is going to be Wildcat's Revenge at Hershey Park. RMC iBox conversion of Wildcat, of course. The pacing of this I've heard is absolutely insane. So even though I have a bit of questions relating to the layout, just the reviews of it are just too much, I think, for me to keep it off the list. And there is some interesting aspects to this compared to other RMCs. There's a unique kind of lack of banking on some elements. And just intensity from what I've heard compared to other RMCs. And as for the elements I'm most intrigued with, the first camelback looks really strong. There's this wave turn that happens in the ride that has a pretty long descent, but this ride has a few wave turns, so that's something to look forward to. There's a very nice looking 0G stall as well. And then definitely the biggest one I'm looking forward to in terms of elements is the double down that has the lack of banking. Just getting insane airtime with insane laterals either in between or during, or pretty good laterals. That definitely is interesting to me. Very odd looking element as well. So I've heard great things about it. And then even there's like the ending few hills have some snappy directional changes as well, from what I've heard. So um, that definitely would be something to look forward to. Already civilian satellite. I'll see you later. Thanks for checking out the stream, and I'll see you next time. Yeah, I've heard the double down is insane, and I'm glad to hear it from you, Evan. That it is crazy because I mean that element, even from the animated POV, it looked very interesting, and I'm happy to hear that it actually lived up to the hype. Whippy zero G rolls as well. That kind of goes hand in hand with the pacing. But yeah, I guess I didn't really see it in terms of them being that different than like some of the other ones RMC has made. But if the pacing's great, they're also going to be elevated. So that also certainly is something to look forward to. Next, we'll move on to Twisted Timbers at King's Dominion. So actually, a few rides that are in Coaster Evan's neck of the woods, and I know that Jackson, you got to experience this one last year. RMC iBox conversion of hurler, insane amount of what looks to be strong ejector airtime and great usage of the structure. Those are some things that stand out about Twisted Timbers. Most intriguing elements, I just put down the triple camelback sequence. Looks absolutely insane. Just like an absolute airtime buffet, just getting those three camelbacks back to back to back. You got a trick track that looks very interesting just because you get airtime kind of in weird positions, so that looks pretty cool. There's this off-axis hill in the structure where it just kind of curves out randomly. That looks insane. I love off-axis airtime, so that definitely looks like a highlight. And then toward the end of the ride, there's a 0G roll that looks kind of slower, but I imagine it's probably going to give some good hang time, and it's in the structure, so that's going to be a good visual. So those are the elements I'm most looking forward to. But this ride, the airtime just looks ridiculous in terms of the strength. So that's why I'm interested. The only concern I have is a lot of people compare this ride to Storm Chaser. I think Storm Chaser didn't run the best for me, and it's actually one of my least favorite RMC iBox coasters. So hopefully I won't have the same disappointment with Twisted Timbers, as it looks absolutely insane. So that certainly is what I'm looking forward to. Number 7 is Shivering Timbers at Michigan's Adventure. This is, of course, the legendary CCI wooden coaster. Very remote, very difficult to get to. So definitely of all the coasters on here, this is definitely going to be one of the trickier ones to get out to. But maybe doesn't have the strength of airtime as the rides we were talking about previously, but the amount is insane. I mean, this very much, just looking at this ride, reminds me a lot of like if Voyage was like kind of built in the 90s but wasn't like really a super terrain based coaster. This is what you get basically, I guess. So I mean, it just looks crazy. Very long ride. And this one, it's kind of hard to come up with like a list of intriguing elements, but I mean, the first leg of Massive Hills look legendary. There is a small bunny hill in the structure that looks potentially kind of strong, and I think I watched Kennedy Coaster's review, and he said that was a good element, so I threw it in here. And then it has a nice like final helix that looks like it's got a lot of laterals, which I just love how CCI does their laterals. So that final helix looks pretty strong in that department, so that would be the most intriguing element. But I mean, my goodness, this ride, I mean, it looks like a dream just kind of looking at it. It looks just so sick. Yeah, I absolutely want to check out this ride as soon as I can, but it's probably going to be a while. So, Shivering Timbers at Michigan's Adventure. I don't know if anyone in here has ridden it who's watching right now, but if anyone in here has, or anyone watching afterward has, definitely let me know what your thoughts are on it, because I've heard a few mixed opinions with it. Along with the next coaster I'm going to talk about, which is Boulder Dash at Lake Compounds. Um, Another CCI wooden coaster, but this one has elite terrain usage, an amazing setting, great sense of speed. I've heard night rides on this are absolutely legendary. Hard to get, but if I was able to get it, that would be great. Another ride that a ride that has a very nice mix of laterals and airtime. Um, and then some elements I noted in here just that I'm interested in. The first drop and turn for the laterals and sense of speed. I saw on Canopy Coaster, you mentioned that there's these two hills that are back to back that give uh, sort of almost ejector level airtime. So I threw that in here. And then the return run of hills just looks legendary. I mean, that's the part everyone videos and gets the pictures of because it's easiest, but also just looks insane. Um, it just looks incredible, just it going by the hillside and going through those hills. And the airtime looks very fun. It definitely looks like a fun part of the attraction as well. But another ride that I'm super intrigued with. Definitely one that I think I've become more so just having experienced more wooden coasters, and definitely liking the ones that have terrain usage and that are just kind of crazy looking just in general. And Boulder Dash definitely fits the bill there, but another one I've heard kind of mixed opinions on, so um, definitely is going to be interesting there. Number 5 is going to be El Toro at Six Flags Great Adventure. This is an Intamin prefabricated wooden coaster. I'll actually get back to this in a second. Boulder Dash was running rough, maybe just because of the contrast between the wood and steel track. Okay, so you rode it recently. Yeah, the Titan track, it's interesting because I heard, at least at the beginning, it actually made the pacing faster. Um, but at the same time, you are going to have the contrast between the wood and steel. I'm not sure how it's doing after, I forget when they put the Titan track in originally. Was it last year in 2023? I'm curious how it's been holding up as of late, but um, obviously not ideal that it's running rough. So hopefully, by the time I get out there, that's smoothened out. Because yeah, I've heard that as a concern. So um, that's certainly something to note. And actually, another ride I've heard about potential roughness is actually El Toro. So, but on the positive side of things, I mean, this has some of the strongest, most unhinged airtime on the planet. It's not the longest coaster, but it's just so insane looking. Most intriguing elements, I mean, the first drop and then those first two camelbacks look like three of the greatest airtime moments on the entire planet. You also have the Rolling Thunder Hill, which is legendary in its own right. And some of the low to the ground turns, just having that sense of speed. I don't know how actually snappy the transitions are or how intense those elements are, but just having that speed is nice to have. So threw those in here just because I think it would be fun. That should be a fun part of El Toro. But I mean, definitely those four elements I mentioned initially are the main ones that I'm looking forward to. And I mean, it does look pretty crazy. I'm just curious in terms of if there's really only four elite elements and the rest of the ride is potentially meh, as I've heard some people say. I don't know how that's going to affect its overall ranking, so it's kind of a weird one to actually put here anyways, and I think I'm kind of putting it on the higher end, honestly, of what I could be doing. So that is a concern I have, but it still looks, those elite elements do look truly elite, so can't argue with that. Hello Beyond the Thrills, how you doing? Just doing the re-ranking of my most anticipated coasters in North America. That's what's going on. And then coaster revenues say that El Toro felt buttery smooth. And the ejector airtime feels like you're getting thrown into the parking lot. I mean, yeah, I've heard the airtime is just absolutely nuts. So that I do not doubt. And it's good that it was running smooth the last time we were there. So um, that is fair. In your opinion, El Toro is not the same ride since it reopened from the incident. I've heard some of that, so that definitely is something that to be cautious of, and it's out of your top 10. Yeah, that I have heard some of that it hasn't been running as great as of lately from some people. So um, there is that as well. But I mean, this has been a bucket list coaster for some time, and don't know when I'll get out here to ride it. Hopefully in the not super distant future. For actually probably for a few reasons with El Toro, with what Great Adventures doing, but I think El Toro will be fine. I think it's here to stay for quite a while, but yeah, definitely very high on my bucket list still, as you can see. My number 4 coaster here is going to be Fury 325 at Carowinds. Of course, this is the legendary B&M Giga Coaster. It's a very long ride that's just a speed demon in general. Has some great airtime moments and unbelievable pacing. Most intriguing elements for me, the first drop. Those Giga first drops, I've done it on Orion, I've done it on Millennium Force. They're just insane. So would love to do it again here on Fury 325. There's some speed hills as well that look very, very good. So first few hills look nice. You have the treble clef element, which is legendary. So that's definitely just super iconic. Definitely one of my absolute most anticipated parts of the ride. And there's a few airtime hills toward the end of the ride that look nice as well. So overall, the sense of speed on this is gonna be insane, and I absolutely love that when I got my front row rides on Orion. So I can't imagine. I mean, Fury 325 is just gonna take that to a completely new level. Forgot to put in here, but this also seems like an elite night ride opportunity. That is just something that would be a dream to be able to do. And Coaster Evan, you have it as your number 1 overall, and I know many people do. So, I mean, it is an absolutely world-class coaster, and I am just I would absolutely love to ride this. So, Fury 325 is gonna come in at number 4. Number 3 is actually Pantherian at King's Dominion. It still feels weird saying that, but this is the Intamin Giga Coaster. For me personally, what puts it above Fury 325 just in terms of my most anticipated list, like, and this basically works like theoretically if I could be teleported to any of these coasters, this would be like the order in which I would go about it priority list wise. The reason for me why Pantherian is higher is, for me personally, I love out of control feeling rides. And I think Pantherian looks like it will be a very out of control ride. It is insanely intense, has some extremely whippy transitions, another speed demon as well. That also mixes in some great airtime, and the pacing also just looks absolutely nuts. Most intriguing elements for me, you have the first drop. Looks incredible. I've heard it's not as long as like the other Giga drops, but it still looks absolutely insane. The first turnaround is ridiculously intense, and I've heard great things about the first Camelback as well, having some nice airtime. So that just first sequence looks incredible, and any of the snaps or any of like the rapid transitions are also going to be on here because those just look insanely whippy. Yeah, this ride, it's still insane that it was ever built. I hope it stays around for a long time, and I can't wait to experience it, even if it has a new coat of paint and a completely different theme and kind of a weird name. But it still looks excellent regardless. So that's Pantherian at King's Dominion. If you've ridden this, once again, just let me know either in chat or in the comments. What are your thoughts on it? Because I know this one is there's a little bit of differences in opinion on this one as well. Next, we're going to move on to Iron Gwazi at Busch Gardens, Tampa. Uh, I mean, this is the RMC conversion of Gwazi, although it may as well just be a ground-up coaster, basically. Another ride that has insane pacing, looks to have very strong intensity for an RMC, and is loaded with powerful airtime. My most intrigued elements for this ride are the first drop. It's actually because it's a little bit steeper. I'm curious how much that will be able to be felt. The outer bank tail at the beginning, just yeah, it looks insane, absolutely insane. And as I've mentioned, I love getting airtime off axis, so that looks incredible. Death roll, if that lives up to the hype, is like one of the best inversions out there. I mean, absolutely, that's going to be fantastic. There's a wave turn that, I mean, looks like one of the greatest wave turns of all time. I mean, the best one I've personally experienced is the one on Twisted Cyclone, and this looks even better than that, so that looks fantastic. And then toward the end of the ride, there's this Twisted Double Down that also looks great as well. Yeah, this ride is just fantastic collection of elements, looks truly insane. I wouldn't be surprised if this were to be my favorite RMC once I get done riding it. Coaster Evan, you rode Iron Gwazi last weekend, and the Death Roll definitely lives up to the hype. Well, that's fantastic to hear. And this ride just looks crazy. It'll also be interesting to see when I write it, the argument that's been had as of late, which is better between this and Velocicoaster. That'll be an interesting comparison to make. And actually, of all of these, I think this one is one of those ones I may have a plan in place to maybe get out to this one, to Busch Gardens, Tampa. It's kind of crazy that I've been to Florida twice and I haven't been yet. So since Iron Gwazi's open, I have not been there. So maybe this year that can change. So would definitely love to finally experience this insane looking ride. But my number one coaster is actually going to go to another RMC, and this is the Air Force One at Fun Spot America Atlanta. And this ride, I mean, yeah, it just looks insane. Another RMC iBox. This one is truly ground up. The pacing of it looks crazy. The airtime looks absolutely absurd. And then the inversions, just in general, also look just on a different level. I think compared to some other RMCs, just like all of them in general. Most intriguing elements, the Raven Trust Dive. It's shaped kind of similarly to the RMC Raven dives, so being able to experience that on an iBox really intrigues me. I don't expect it to be as good because the RMC Raptor ones are just truly insane, but even if it's anything close, it's going to be a fantastic element. Zero G stall looks really good. The hang time looks really good, really insane on it. There's an outer bank tail on this ride as well that just seeing the footage of it hauling over looks just so good. There's actually two rolls. There's zero G roll and a barrel roll that are pretty close to the ground, and the footage of it going through those elements when it's hauling, I mean, the whip looks insane. And then the quad down. Honestly, this element is, if I don't like rank elements, but this is definitely up there in terms of one of my most absolutely anticipated elements out there. I know it's just pretty simple, like just four hills going down, but this is a Joe Draves design coaster. I thought the finale on Lightning Run was already insane. And this ride, the airtime strength of these hills, I've just heard is like actually like thigh bruising, which, and I've heard for some it's actually a little bit too much, and that actually really excites me, because I can't even imagine. It sounds like otherworldly, that last squad down. So um, I think this is an absolutely incredible looking coaster. And some people would say it's kind of crazy I have it over Iron Gwazi, and who knows, maybe when I ride him, I'll have a difference of opinion. But this layout looks so good. And it's kind of funny. I was actually in Atlanta a few weeks ago because of a long layover situation, and it was too cold because it was caused by the snow and the snow, the like kind of snowstorms. Um, and so obviously I wasn't able to ride this, which kind of sucks because I mean that was the first time I was actually in Atlanta since this has opened. But this is one I'll definitely be able to get to at some point, probably in the not too distant future. That which also makes it even more exciting, although that doesn't affect my placement of it. But yeah, this ride just looks nuts. Um, let's see. Beyond the Thrills says Air Force One is your favorite RMC. You've ridden 9. You like it better than rides like Steel Vengeance, Outlaw Run, Wildcats, Revenge, and Twisted Timbers. Well, that's very good to hear because yeah, I think I might be able to like this more than Steel Vengeance, and that's saying a lot. Air Force One lives up to the hype too. The best stall I've ever been on. The airtime hurts so good. Yeah, it just looks like I said otherworldly. And you can, yeah, and then you were able to marathon it. I try to not have that affect my rankings too much, and in fact, I wouldn't really say it does. But it in terms of like, but it is nice to know that once I go there marathoning it, it should be very accomplishable. So you can write it until you fall over. So that's certainly a nice bonus to the whole thing. Because a lot of these other rides, you're gonna be waiting a little bit for them, which is fine. Like I said, does not affect the rankings, but it's just like I said, a nice little bonus when it comes to Air Force One. So that'll do it for the most anticipated North America list. Have another one a little later for worldwide or overseas, but we'll move on to our next segment, which is going to be Guess the Coaster. So, actually, I guess I'll pull up the graphic for it. But I think most people in here have played before. We'll be doing 6 rounds of Guess the Coaster. Basically, I'll get a coaster, and you'll try to guess in the chat based on clues. Where is the Guess the Coaster rules? There we go. All right, this is Guess the Coaster. If you never played it, here are the rules. As I mentioned, I will use RCDB to find a notable coaster, ask yes or no questions in the chat. And then from the answers, you're going to try to guess the coaster. You have unlimited attempts to do so. First person to guess the coaster will be credited with a point. And then, yeah, you can see the other questions here along with the examples. So there you have it. I will get my first coaster, and then you can guess away. Let me see. Alrighty, I have my first coaster. Guess away. And then welcome to the chat, Jace. Yeah, you arrived just in time for Guess the Coaster, so good timing. But yeah, as I mentioned, I have my coaster. So the coaster is not red. Not really in any shape or form. So this is not a red coaster. So it is in the United States. And it is steel. So we do have a steel coaster in the United States. Doesn't really narrow it a whole lot, but at least you're getting somewhere. And well, at least you know it's not red, so there is that. It is not in the New England region. So far we just have steel U.S. coaster. It does have inversions, so we do have a steel US coaster with inversions. And then we'll see what other questions we get here. It is not over 200 feet, so this coaster is under 200 feet. No, I wouldn't say this is in the southern US, so it's not a southern US coaster. So at this point we have steel US coaster with inversions that is under 200 feet tall. So do with that as you will. It is not in California, and it is not an Intamin. So, it is not a sit-down. So no, it is not a sit-down coaster. That actually probably is a big hint. It is located in a chain park. It is not inverted. It is not a wooden coaster, so let's try to recap. It's a US steel coaster with inversions, under 200 feet, that is at a chain park that is not a sit-down coaster. But it is a wing coaster. So we do have a US wing coaster. Pretty sure all of them have inversions, but it has inversions. It is not from Vekoma. It is not a 4D coaster. It is over 4,000 feet long, actually. So, it is not Thunderbird, and Jace got it. It is Gatekeeper at Cedar Point, so Jace will be on board. Or 80, I guess now 808 Coaster Life. He switched accounts on me. But there we go. That is the correct answer. And I have my next coaster actually right off the bat, so guess away. This one, I will tell you, will be trickier than the last one. I think the last one was actually pretty easy, all things considered. The over 4,000 feet long question came in clutch there, actually. So, you didn't realize you were on the other account until you posted in chat. That's funny. This coaster is not in Asia. No, I don't think getting rethemed the Skibidi would bring it more guests. But that would be something. Chicken wings. That would be an a chicken wing themed wing coaster. That would be something. It is not in Europe. It is not in Germany, but it is defunct. That is actually a big hint. So far we have a defunct coaster. That's pretty much it, but that actually is a significant one. And it is in the US. So we do have a defunct US coaster. It is not Wild Train. Rest in peace. And so because it's in the US, it's not going to be in another country. It is not Kingda Ka, but it is wooden. So we have a defunct US wooden coaster. Man, y'all might actually get this one like a lot quicker than I expected, which that would be impressive. It is not Son of Beast. It is not from the Din Corporation. And Coaster Evan got it. Wow. Villain at Geauga Lake is the correct answer. That's a crazy pull. But yeah, Coaster Evan is correct. It is Villain at Geauga Lake. Wow. Alright. And so Coaster Evan is on the board. I mean, that's crazy. We didn't even have a manufacturer established or anything. But, well, besides it wasn't from Din Corp, but there you go. And I do have my next coaster, so guess away. That one actually went way quicker than I was expecting, so very impressive. It is not a B&M coaster. It is in the US, so we do have another US coaster. So you all have been getting very fortunate in that regard. So we have a US coaster. It's not manufactured by B&M. It is not on the East Coast. So, yeah, not an East Coast roller coaster, but it is in the US. It is not over 200 feet. It's not in the Midwest region that, like, let me just make sure what states are generally considered part of that. Yeah, it's not, it's definitely not, in the Midwest. So, is it located? It's not in a chain, so that will answer that one. It is not in the South either. So, not there either. So this is a U.S. coaster that is not located at a chain park, less than 200 feet, and we haven't gotten the geographic location besides it's in the U.S. figured out yet. It's not in Texas, and it is not in California. It is not a wacky. I would not give a wacky worm. That'd be crazy. It is not a wooden coaster, so we have it narrowed down at least that it's a steel coaster. So, steel US coaster, not in a chain, under 200 feet. That's what we have so far. Which, that still leaves probably a decent amount of options. It is not Intamin. It does have inversions. It is not Cannibal at Lagoon. So we have steel coaster, U.S. steel coaster with inversions, under 200 feet tall, located north of Kentucky. Look at a map real quick. I'm pretty sure the answer is yes. Actually, yes. The answer is a definite yes. So yeah, it is north of Kentucky. It is not Fahrenheit. So, not Fahrenheit. Not Cannibal, as I mentioned. It is not in Pennsylvania. So, to recap again, so far we have US steel coaster with inversions that is not at a chain park, under 200 feet, but it is in a state that is north of Kentucky. And it is not a sit-down coaster. It definitely does not use terrain. This is not a terrain coaster. So no, it does not use its terrain to its advantage. It is inverted, but it is not an SLC. So it is not a flying coaster. It is Great Bear. Can you eat it? This is not like, no, this isn't themed to something that like could theoretically be eaten. It is not Batwing. It is not a Batman clone. It is not Raptor. It is not Dragonflyer. Once again, this is at a park that is not in a chain. So, there's that to consider. And it does have inversions, so that was established. It is from Vekoma, but as we already mentioned, it is not an SLC, so it's a different model, but it still does have inversions. So should be, I think, pretty quick then in terms of figuring it out. So let's see. Vekoma, so it's a Vekoma inverted coaster. It's not an SLC, but it has inversions. It's in the US. And it's in a state north of Kentucky. It is not Nighthawk. Already established, it's not a flying coaster, so it's something different. It's not defunct. It still exists. It's still operating. The Demonator, welcome to the stream. We're doing Yes the Coaster. So you can join in if you want. Pretty much just trying to guess the coaster that I have. It is not in Vertigo. So let's see. Just to recap. It is a giant inverted boomerang. Yes, that is the model. So it is a Vekoma giant inverted boomerang. So, and Jim got it first, very closely followed by Coaster Evan, but Aftershock is the correct answer. So Jim will be on the board, and we'll move on to another one. So 3 rounds in, 3 more to go. Let's see. I'm still getting my next coaster. Alrighty, I have my next coaster. Guess away. Your home park used to have Goliath. Yep. Not the most popular coaster, but at least when it was at New England. Heard it was good as Deja Vu. I wish I could have ridden it, but got removed before I ever went to Magic Mountain, unfortunately. The coaster is not red. It looks like it at one point had a red train, but that looks like it was from a while ago. It is not Bisbee's Spiral Airship. Is it at a former Cedar Fair park? No. Let's see. Not a Wacky Worm of any sort. I know it wasn't one that was being guessed, but I'll just mention it's not Quantum Accelerator, just for the sake of it. It's not in Belgium, and it is not steel, so we do have a wooden coaster. And it is in the US, so again, another US coaster. So we have a wooden coaster in the US. That's pretty much it. And we've already established it's not at a Legacy Cedar Fair park. It is not a GCI. It is not Ghost Rider. It is not from Arrow. It is not Voyage or Boss. So we have a wooden coaster in the US that is not from a Legacy Cedar Fair park and not a GCI. Not from Gravity Group, not from CCI. In fact, actually, you're probably better off not guessing manufacturers because it's not worth. Actually, no one's gonna get the manufacturer. Actually, I'll just say it's not worth. So don't bother with that. Let's see. It is not Great White at Maurice Piers. It's not a PTC, but it does have PTC trains, so that may be of help. It is actually exactly 100 feet tall, funnily enough. So, yeah, exactly 100 feet tall. It's not El Toro. It's not Kingdom Coaster. It's a state north of Kentucky. I'll have to look again. I think the answer to this is going to be no. but let me check real quick. I'm gonna say it's not. Yeah, I'm gonna say it's not north of Kentucky. But it's pretty close actually. At least the state. The coaster location might actually be. I'm not sure. It's not Arkansas Twister. It's not Giant Dipper. It's Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk. It's not National Amusement Devices. Like I said, it's not worth trying to guess the manufacturer. It's not Classic Coaster. It's not Screaming Eagle. It's not Blue Sariga Conneaut Lake Park. It's not Hurler. You gotta go, but go check. Try to catch the next stream already. I'll see you later. It is not Hellcat at Clementon Park. It is not Roller Coaster at Lagoon. So let's try to get back here. So it's a wooden coaster in the U.S. We've already established it does have PTC trains, but the manufacturer you're just not gonna guess it. So it is not Colossus at Six Flags Magic Mountain. It's not defunct. It's still operating. Again, actually. Timberwolf at Worlds of Fun. No, it is not. Not Rolo Coaster at Idlewild. Man, everyone's just trying to throw stuff at the wall. It's not Leap the Dips. Yeah, I didn't think about it, but this one might take a little bit, actually. I did not realize. It is not Skyliner. It is at a chain park. So this is at a chain park. It is exactly 100 feet tall for whatever that's worth. According to RCDB, I should say. It is not Coney Island Cyclone. It is not an estate bordering Kentucky, I can tell you that much. I'll just mention, if I don't know if it's north of a state, it's probably because it's not very close to there. that might, if I'm struggling, because I generally would know if it's like literally right above it, but if it isn't, then that's why I'm gonna have to look at a map. So that actually might be a tip in and of itself. Well, so this park is not currently in the Six Flags chain, but it was. This is a former Six Flags park, but it's not currently part of the current Six Flags chain, if that helps. It's not Switchback at ZDT's. Oh, 808 Coaster got it. Or 808 Coaster Life got it. It is Twister 3 at Storm Chaser. Twister 3 Storm Chaser. Yeah, gosh, wow. That name is just a lot to say and remember. But yeah, Twister 3 is the correct answer. And so Jace is on the board with the second point. Yeah. You know your Colorado coasters, I would hope so. I do have my next coaster. Honestly, I think this has been easier than it could have been. Although Twister 3 took a while. Because I think I saw like the manufacturer was like Hensel Phelps or something. I legit have never heard of them, honestly. I'm like curious now what else they've done. I have gotten my other coasters, so you can guess away. I'm just like curious. Okay, no, they literally only ever built this coaster. Okay. But like I said, I do have my second coaster, so guess away. That ride is a jackhammer. Yeah, it doesn't sound great. Jace has ridden it. Oh, are you asking the question in terms of this coaster I have currently? Have I ridden it? I have not. I have not ridden this coaster. That actually would have been a helpful question for one of them earlier. Um, or I guess it's just a helpful question in general, although I don't have like the biggest coaster count at 201 credits. It is not a bobsled coaster. It is not defunct, it's still operating. So we do have an operating coaster that I have not ridden, and it's not a bobsled coaster. So send me in those questions. It is a wooden coaster, so we have yet another wooden coaster. It is not from Intamin. Again, this one actually, it's not worth, the manufacturer is not worth doing. So don't bother with the manufacturer. I mean, RCDV doesn't even list one, so it's not a GCI. It is not Colossus, but it is in the US. So we have a US wooden coaster that's still operating. It is not in the Six Flags chain, nor has it ever been. It is not Twister. Not Twister at Knoebels, or Twister of any sort. This one is at a chain park, so we do have a US wooden coaster from a chain park. Not Flying Turns. So that takes out Knoebels out of the question. The chain park thing anyways. It is not at a SeaWorld park. So, once again, US operating wooden coaster at a chain park. It's not at United Parks. I know what you meant. Let's see. So, I guess clues-wise, this one would be a little more tricky, actually, now that I think about it. Even though this is certainly a well-known coaster. Thunder Run, no. It is at a Parque Reunidos park. I can say specifically Palace Entertainment because it's a Palace park. Otherwise, for those of you who aren't aware of what Parque Reunidos has in the U.S., it is not Ghoster Coaster Canada's Wonderland. It is not Boulder Dash, nor is it Rolo Coaster. So it is not Thunderbolt at Kennywood, but it is a coaster at Kennywood, so I'll at least answer that. It is not Wildcat at Lake Compounce, but I think at this point, like, someone's gonna get it pretty quick. It is not Jackrabbit, which only leaves Racer, and Evan got it first on my screen, but it was very close between Evan and Jace, but I'll give the point to Evan. Racer is the correct answer, and we'll move on to our next question. And the final question, actually, or not question, final coaster, thinking of the quiz. But I have it, guess away, and I'll just say this round was, I would say, a lot easier than some of the other ones. This round, I don't think it's too difficult, but this overall, like, just set of coasters was, I think, less difficult than usual. Is the coaster bad? Generally, I think the coaster is, it's not seen as a bad coaster, that's for sure, so I'm gonna say no to that. It's not generally considered to be a bad coaster. It is not Bisbee's Spiral Airship. So, all we have is that it is not considered to be a bad coaster. Is it east of Kentucky? Yes, it is. I don't need a map to see that one. So, it is east of Kentucky. Um, it is in the U.S. Yeah, I guess it could have been east of Kentucky, theoretically, but just like on the complete opposite side of the planet. So good to establish that. Um, it is not in a Six Flags park, not in a current or former, not in the New England area, but it is a steel coaster. So we do have a steel coaster in the U.S. that is east of Kentucky, which, not in Canada, not DC rivals. It is in the U.S. So, um, this is a U.S. coaster. I was just saying that theoretically it would have been funny if I just said it was east of Kentucky, but it was like in Europe or something. Um, it is a B&M, so we do have a B&M coaster. It is south of Pennsylvania, and it is not in Florida. It's not Steel Hogs. So we have U.S. U.S. B&M coaster that is east of Kentucky, south of Pennsylvania, but not in Florida. Hello, Mason. Welcome to the stream. It is a hyper. So we do have a hyper coaster. Snap Fury 325. Since it's a B&M hyper, it can't be in Maryland, so that is out of the race. It's not Firebird. It is not Fury 325. It is above North Carolina. It's not Goliath at over Georgia. It's not Thunder Striker, but Apollo's Chariot is the correct answer. And so Nick will go on the board with a point. Coaster Evan not too bad, or not too far behind. And actually, Coaster Evan, because you got the most recent point, even though you were tied with Jace at 2 points, Coaster Evan is going to be our Guess the Coaster winner. That was the final round. So our winner is Coaster Evan with 2 points. Technically a tie between Evan and Jace from 808 Coaster Life, but we'll give the edge to Evan for getting the point more recently. That's how I do the tiebreaker. And that'll pretty much do it for the Guess the Coaster, which will lead us to our second to last segment of the stream. As I did earlier, I ranked my most anticipated coasters in North America, ranked my top 10, and I'm going to do the same here for my most anticipated overseas coasters. And once again, if you've ridden these coasters or you're just interested in them, definitely let me know your thoughts as we go through this process. But same sort of deal, just in terms of what I did with the most anticipated North American coasters. I'm going to focus on just talking about my top 10, but I'll just show the list of like the 25 through 11 that didn't make that top 10, but just to kind of show and have a record of it, these would be my top 25 most anticipated overseas coasters outside of the top 10 that I'll get to in a bit. I've only been to Port Aventura, so that's the only stuff that wouldn't be here, basically. Port Aventura and Ferrari Land, that's why it says Port Aventura Resort. So I've done all their major coasters, so none of those will be on here. You're going to King's Dominion this summer. That's exciting. Obviously, a great top 2 there. So hope you have a good time. So that's just kind of the list of coasters that didn't quite make my top 10. And actually, for this one, I have an honorable mention that I only found out about as I was going through this in terms of what its current circumstances. And that's actually going to be Wood Coaster at Night Valley. It was going to be number 6 on the list, but it turns out that it's actually been listed as SBNO since 2022, putting its future in serious question. The park it's at has apparently been in like pretty bad shape the last several years. And people have questioned the future of this coaster, and it hasn't operated since 2022, it seems like. So, who even knows if it's actually going to operate again? But just to kind of go through this coaster, had insane terrain, or it has, since technically it's not defunct yet, insane terrain usage, barrage of airtime pops, great pacing. It just the way it used the terrain and the length of it and everything, it just looked absolutely incredible. This would have been my most anticipated wooden coaster left in the entire world if it wasn't like potentially never going to operate again. Hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully it's able to reopen, but I wouldn't be surprised if it never does. Would have been a hard coaster to get out to anyways. Definitely out of the ones in my top 10, it would have actually arguably been the trickiest, which is saying something. But yeah, not going to be on here just because of its uncertain future. But that brings us to our number 10 and our beneficiary of wood coaster not making the list. And that is Voltron at Europa Park. This is, of course, the new for 2024, last year, Mach Striker coaster. The theming of this ride in the queue and the parts of the ride that are themed, though some of it go into spoiler territory, so I won't go into what happens in some of those portions. But I've seen it. Looks really fantastic. And the layout overall looks excellent with a great mix of airtime and inversions. A ride that's like really long duration-wise as well. My most intriguing elements for this ride are the inverted top hat after the launch. Looks like it has some great hang time. There's a 0G stall as well that also looks like it has some really sick hang time. And then there's a camelback in the first half that I've heard delivers some really strong ejector airtime. The backwards launch I've actually heard is the best launch on this ride, just because it's apparently very powerful and unexpectedly powerful going backwards. So that's definitely notable. And then the last thing I have here is the sequence of the top hat to the camelback to the wave turn. I've heard this is like one of the best airtime sequences on any coaster. Canopy Coaster raved about it in his review. And the airtime on all three of these moments look insane. So had to put it on here for that reason. And this coaster overall, definitely one I was underestimating when we first saw the announcement for it and everything. This definitely looks like an absolutely world-class coaster. It's been revered as such. I've pretty much only heard like I think pretty much almost every review I've heard is that this is an elite coaster. And for some people, this is their number one who've ridden like a ton of coasters. So it looks fantastic. And yeah, as Coaster Evan says, you've only heard rave reviews. Pretty much same here. So had to find a way to get it on here, especially once Wood Coaster got knocked out. So Voltron comes in at number 10. Number 9, on the other side of the world, basically, almost, is T-Express at Everland. So this is obviously the Intamin prefabricated wooden coaster. Very long ride duration, definitely more so than El Toro has it beat in that department. It looks to have an insane beginning with a crazy first drop and that first hill. I mean, it looks El Toro level. Obviously, it doesn't have the next hill after that or the Rolling Thunder hill. But then the ride basically turns into just a souped up, like sped up baller, which some people have criticized the coaster for that, but I've heard great things about Balder. So if it's literally just has those two elite elements plus just a better version of Balder, that's like pretty insane. So yeah, my most intriguing elements, I mentioned them already. So it's that first drop, it's the first camelback, and just being able to experience basically that whole Balder section just sped up is going to be crazy. So I haven't heard too much since it got the RMC 208 retrack. That doesn't really concern me too much in terms of how it should be running. And I'm not too bothered by it technically making it not a wooden coaster in certain sections or not wooden in certain sections. I'm still very excited to check out this ride. I've heard a bit of mixed things in terms of how this ride just runs in general, but it just looks super insane. And the best reviews I've heard of it, uh, people have it ranked very high in their overall rankings, so it had to be on here. My number 8 is probably going to be the most surprising one on here. This is going to be Formula Rossa at Ferrari World. Intimate Accelerator coaster. The reason I have it on here is I absolutely love Top Thrill Dragster's launch. And this coaster seems to have, at this point, what would likely be my favorite launch out there. Um, it's I think pretty much like 0 to 149 miles per hour in, I would like to say 5 seconds if that's correct. So just the sensation of speed and the power it's going to have is going to be definitely quite something. And then even after the launch, a lot of people kind of question the layout. Why is it so long afterwards? But I think it's actually kind of cool, especially because I've heard some of the hills, and most of the hills have some airtime, even if it's more of the floater variety. And it's just a good way to like showcase its speed and have that great sensation of speed beyond the first launch. So I actually think that's pretty cool. I've also heard the top hat, or first hill, I should say, after the launch, despite there being a trim there, is quite strong. So this is a ride that I really want to experience just for that launch and this overall sensation of speed. And hey, it even delivers some airtime in there as well. So that's just an overall really good package, I think, for sure. And I mean, people complain about the accelerator coasters, most of them being too short. This definitely does not have that problem. Over 6,000 feet of track, so that's obviously a nice thing for this coaster to have. Our number 7 coaster is gonna probably be the other coaster that's gonna be hardest to get to, and that's Python and Bamboo Forest at Nanchang Sunak Land. This is a terrain-based GCI wooden coaster, not quite as terrain-based as, say, Wood Coaster, but it still does utilize the hillside to its advantage toward the end. Has a lot of airtime pops. There's a double down near the beginning that looks quite good, so that was an intriguing element. I also just put the cliffside finale where the ride just picks up speed as it goes down the hill, traversing several airtime moments. I think that looks like the peak part of the ride. So those would be the moments I'd be most looking forward to. But yeah, this ride also looks insane. If Wood Coaster doesn't ever reopen, this is probably the greatest GCI wooden coaster out there. And certainly my most anticipated of all the ones out there, for sure. So hopefully, my only concern is I don't know how well it's running as of late, but hopefully it should be doing fine. And I would like to hope, anyways. So that's Python and Bamboo Forest. Next, we're gonna move on to Untamed at Wallaby Holland. This is, of course, the RMC iBox conversion of Robin Hood, the first and currently only RMC iBox conversion of any coaster in Europe. This just has a mix of really strong airtime moments and great inversions. Honestly, this just looks like a I've heard like comparisons to like a mini Steel Vengeance, and I see some Twisted Timbers in this ride. So I think of the I guess smaller RMCs in terms of height, I think this one honestly looks like the best of all of them. Most intriguing elements, the double inverting stall. It's just a very wacky looking element. Looks like it'll have some nice hang time and just be an overall kind of strange transition. So definitely that's a highlight, a moment I'm looking forward to. The camelback, large camelback, looks like it'll have some insane ejector airtime. There's an off-axis hill as well that looks pretty strong, along with a nice looking wave turn. And then toward the end of the ride, there's this like kind of quadruple hill finale that's been compared to the Steel Vengeance finale. That looks really good. That part of it's in the structure as well. And then the final barrel roll looks insane. The hang time, it's like not a normal barrel roll. It's like elongated, and it looks pretty disorienting. So it should be some great hang time on that element, and just should make for a very memorable finish. This looks like an absolutely incredible RMC coaster. Even has some nice theming in the queue, it looks like, from what I saw, and a really cool looking train. Um, so yeah, definitely a coaster I cannot wait to get to at some point. Um, and yeah, so Untamed at Wallaby Holland would be number 6. Number 5, we're going to have a few RMCs here, but 5 is going to be Hakuge at Nagashima Spa Land. And actually, for any of these coasters, I imagine most people in chat probably have not ridden these, but like I said, if you have any thoughts, you can definitely leave it in chat on just what are you excited for this coaster, potential concerns, and then in the chat for those who watch afterwards, or comments for those who watch afterwards, you can let me know your thoughts as well. But the next coaster we have is Hakuge at Nagashima Spa Land. This is the conversion of White Cyclone. This is a very long coaster with incredible pacing from what I've heard. Loads of sideways airtime moments, which is something I love. There's just like a ridiculous amount of it if you look at the layout. And it also has a beautiful setting. I mean, the pictures of this ride are absolutely incredible. And it being like right by the ocean, and you have that turnaround before the drop. I think that was a masterful decision to have it be that turnaround kind of drop. Yeah, this ride looks absolutely incredible. The first drop, especially because you have the momentum going into it, which is different compared to other RMC drops. I'm curious how it rides, since a lot of other ones you're just going from the lift hill, where this one you actually have the momentum of going around the curves. So that's going to be interesting. There's several wave turns on this ride that look incredible. So that's definitely of note. There's a double down as well on this ride that I heard was very good, along with a 0G stall that looks like it has some nice hang time. And there's a few camelbacks throughout the ride that look quite great as well. Jace, you say if you ever go back to Japan, you'll be eyeing this park. Yeah, I definitely would. Because I mean, the lineup in general looks very interesting, and then just to be able to ride Hakuge, I mean, it looks insane. So definitely a coaster. Also, just kind of looking back years and years ago, was too low on. I just thought the layout didn't look that interesting based on the animated POVs. Although I had less experience riding coasters at the time, and that the pacing wasn't going to be that great, and I've only heard the opposite. So a lot of people have this as one of the better RMCs they've ridden, and it certainly looks unique compared to a lot of other ones out there. So that's going to be Hakuge at Nagashima Spa Land. Our next one that's going to end the run of RMCs is Zadra at Energylandia. This is a ground-up iBox coaster, and just an overall large RMC coaster with great pacing and strong large-scale elements. I would say that this ride has a lot of large-scale elements, which is interesting. Most intriguing elements is that first kind of turnaround hill. That transition looks like it'll deliver a really good pop of airtime plus the long drop, so that certainly looks great. The 0G stall, I mean, there's a lot of rides we mentioned of 0G stalls, but this one looks absolutely excellent, and the presentation of it looks amazing as well. Another coaster that has this really strong looking wave turn as well. There's a camelback in the middle of the ride that looks like Ejector City. There's also there's kind of unbanked double down, not to like the same degree of like, it's different than what Wildcat's Revenge is, but it's also unbanked, and I've heard that actually gives good laterals as you get airtime, so that's cool. And then Canopy Coaster mentioned that kind of toward the end of the ride there's a twisted speed hill that's really strong, so I threw that in here. Especially because it's twisted, just getting airtime during that transition like that is going to be great. So overall, looks like a fantastic RMC coaster, one of the better layouts they've created. I don't have them stacked together, but compared to, I'd actually have this under Airy Force One and Iron Quasi if it were on the same list. But this still is like kind of right there with those. So, uh, yeah, that is Zadra. Next, we're gonna move on to DC Rivals at Warner Bros. Movie World. Specifically, that backwards back car is what I'm judging this based on. This is, of course, the Mach Hypercoaster. The backwards back car does a lot of heavy lifting. I don't think this coaster would honestly make the top 10 if it didn't have that. But this layout, regardless, looks like a very good hyper layout. But that backwards back car is just going to make for a one-of-a-kind experience. Getting that level of airtime going backwards is something that's pretty rare. Um, Most intriguing elements, the twisted first drop. I mean, that actually looks insane. I love twisted first drops, the ones I've experienced, such as the one at Joker, at Discovery Kingdom. So I definitely think that this one would deliver quite a bit. I'd also like to check out G-Forces, but obviously that wasn't on the top 10, but another shout out there. Um, there's the Camelback, the main Camelback it has also looks like it'll have a lot of sustained airtime. I've heard a non-inverting loop is like actually like crazy transitional element and gives some really good airtime throughout the kind of top part of it. So that's definitely something I will mention. And admittedly, the second half seems to kind of die a little bit at points. But there's this triple hill finale that going backwards is just going to be crazy. It's these short ejector pops that happen back to back to back. And then you can even throw like the brake run in there. It's like a fourth pop basically. So those would be my most intriguing elements. As I mentioned, the backwards back car. I mean, I mentioned I love out of control feeling rides. I think that backwards back car is going to deliver that experience. So that's why DC Rivals is on the list and this high. And we'll move on to number 2, which is going to be Ejinaika at Fuji-Q Highland / Dinoconda at China Dinosaurs Park. I just decided to lump them both in here since the layouts are mostly identical. Jace, you've ridden this, so you can give your thoughts on it. I know you have a review as well, so if you haven't seen 808 Coaster Life's review on Ejinaika, make sure to do that. But X2 is my number 4 overall coaster I've ridden, and these coasters are just X2, but with even more insane elements and pacing. Interestingly enough, consensus is that Ejinaika is a lot better and more intense than Dinoconda. But there was a Coaster Kings review that mentioned Dinoconda's elements being tighter and more intense, which I found interesting, but generally those who've ridden both seem to think that Ejinaika is better, which I find interesting. My most intriguing elements here, the first drop, I love the one on X2. It's my favorite coaster element of all time, so, I mean, I'm sure this would deliver in that way as well. The inside Raven turn, because it has the flip, it's different than the X2 one, so I'd be very curious to see how that rides. The 0G roll looks absolutely insane. Looks super disorienting, and you're basically just floating throughout the entire element, so that's just crazy. Unlike anything out there, anywhere else in the world. There's a Flight of Lie as well, that also looks very good. And then the final Raven turn, I love that element on X2. I know people find it uncomfortable, and I hear this one is also basically about as ridiculous, so being able to experience that again on this ride would also be great as well. This is definitely, I would be very surprised if this isn't one of my all-time favorite coasters when I ride it. I think that, or either of these, would definitely be right up there, just because of how out of control and insane they look, and I already love X2, and they're just even more demented versions of it, so yeah. We'll move on to number 1. This is Ride to Happiness at Plopsaland Japan. I'll circle back to this. I just saw that Jace mentioned this. While it's not a monumental improvement over X2, Ejinaika fixed your biggest complaint about X2. It also has faster pacing and a 0G roll that feels like you're floating on clouds. Still try to get an inside seat. Yeah, I've heard that's like still like the most important thing. Although actually on that one it makes sense because I mean Ejinaika has shorter trains, which is potentially one of the few things, although you can't even pick your seating, so it's not like you kind of have to get lucky to get back anyways, but it probably matters even less than on X2. Actually, I think Dynaconda has the still has the longer rows, so I think that was something that was also mentioned in that review. Yeah, it has a longer. Dynacona does have a longer train, interestingly enough. But anyways, sorry, back to Ride to Happiness. Mog Extreme spinning coaster with what I would call an elite launch coaster layout, but it has spinning cars. Like, the spinning cars are just this crazy added thing that makes for what looks to be an incredibly chaotic and unique experience, which, as I mentioned, love chaotic rides. So that's why this is going to be number one on my most anticipated list. It also has on onboard soundtrack. I've heard it doesn't always work, but if it is working, that'd be great. If it isn't, well, I already have a coaster really high in my rankings that doesn't have an onboard soundtrack that always works. So not the biggest issue for me. And then I also mentioned the night ride looks really fun here as well, just with the onboard lighting. Most intriguing elements here, the JoJo roll out of the station, especially with it spinning. I mean, what a way to start the ride. The drop off the top hat looks insane. I've heard it's comparable to the drop on Time Traveler, which, I mean, that looks incredible. And so for it to have a comparable element that's just one of many highlight moments is great. There's a 0G roll that looks quite disorienting as well, so wanted to mention that. The second launch has a small hill over it, so being launched while getting airtime while spinning sounds insane. And then the craziest inversions on this ride has to be the flying snake dive. That element is already insane on Storm Runner, and kind of mesmerizing yet disorienting. And the fact that they put it on a spinning coaster is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, this is definitely a ride you'll have to rewrite multiple times, for one, because your experience will be different each time, which also kind of factors. And then two, just to process that element, I can't even imagine what that's like going through it. And then it has a double up finale too that looks to have some really nice airtime pops as you're rotating. So I'm very curious to see what the mock spinner at Holiday Park looks like, because allegedly that's going to potentially be even better than this one. But for now, this is going to be my number one most anticipated coaster overseas, and honestly in general. I'll just say this is my most anticipated coaster of any coaster on the planet. If I could be teleported to ride any coasters I've talked about today, it would be this one. So I definitely love to check out this ride at some point. But that's going to do it for my most anticipated coasters, just in total. It's just I haven't done this in a while, so it's nice to kind of go through it. Also have some receipts to kind of compare for the future. So hope you enjoyed. And I'll move on to our final segment, which will be final Q&A / buy or sell. So any questions you have, any buy or sells you have, let me know. And then I did mention it earlier just a little bit, but I did do a trip recently to Italy. No parks, no coasters, but I went to the cities, as you can see listed here. So if anyone has any questions related to that, go ahead. And then, yeah, that'll pretty much bring us to the end of the stream once we get done with that. So there we go. And I think I can mention otherwise, as I see first questions are coming in here. I'm hoping to slowly get back into guest streams. I've made contact with a potential guest, so I don't know if that will be super soon. But that's something I am gonna try to do here on YouTube as far as the coaster time streams go. And then I am actually on Instagram going to release a post hopefully tomorrow, ideally, if not a few days later, um, about the top five, like basically theme park stories of January, kind of recap of those, which are actually going to be a different group of five than the ones I mentioned here. Some of them will be the same, but some of them will be different. So, and then I also post like the different news that I find on there as well. So it's a great place to see the theme park news as well. Favorite restaurants or foods that I ate while I was in Italy. I should have queued up actually some pictures. Um, but so yeah, let's I'll go through my photos here. I think definitely the best like just general style food in Italy was I mean definitely the pizza. I had two elite pizzas while I was over in Italy. The first was a restaurant in Milan called the Piz, just Piz, um, and that had and I got like the uh, normal kind of marinara pizza that has just the cheese, marinara sauce, and some basil basically, along with a margarita pizza, which is the white sauce pizza. I actually preferred the margarita pizza, funnily enough, but both were really good. Interesting thing with that pizza was the crust was like super thin. Most people were eating with a fork because it literally was that thin, which was kind of interesting. But it was very good. But my favorite pizza was in Naples, which is actually the city where they created pizza. Um, we went to a place, I think it was Augusto's was in the name. I know that. I'm for some reason the full name's escaping me. But we had some great pizzas there. Some more unique ones. I got a mushroom and ham with white sauce pizza. Uh, and then, well, we actually shared the pizzas. But my brother got this pizza with sausage and like potatoes that were crispy, kind of like chips. That one was really good. And then there was a stuffed pizza we got that had like ham and multiple cheeses. Uh, that was so good. That was the best pizza of the trip. That was like amazing. So I'd say pizza was definitely the best thing in general. There was some good pasta dishes, but I think in general I wasn't like insanely impressed with that. I didn't think it was like otherworldly, unlike the pizzas. And we did have some nice desserts, like some nice cannolis, gelato at a point. So definitely some good stuff there. What do I think could replace La Vibora? Well, they are putting the dive coaster in that area, right? I think that's what's been assumed. Um, is I think that I don't know if in that specific plot of land, but I think the dive coaster is going in that area of the park, so I'd say that. Um, but I guess if like we were just talking about like a just general coaster that would appeal more to families, um, that that they could get. I can look at their lineup real quick. Um, Even though I've been just, it's nice to look at. Let's see. They already have a decent amount of family coasters, even with loss of La Vibora, which is nice. Um, but outside of Pandemonium, not really. You got Pandemonium, Runaway Mountain, Runaway Mine Train, Mini Mine Train, and then Wile E. Coyote's Grand Canyon Blaster. So probably something more modern, I'd say. Um, I think some good options would be if they were interested in going the Intamin straddle route. I know that SeaWorld San Antonio has a straddle coaster, but like it's pretty far away. Um, so I think that would be a good option. And if not, actually I think a Vekoma launch coaster. I know those can be expensive, but maybe they get like a smaller version, something more like what Aquila is, although probably something with potentially better capacity, because I can't imagine that coaster runs with more than one train. But something like that would probably be nice too. So give me either one of those. Um, let's see. Buy or sell, flashback at Six Flags to England gets removed for an RMC single rail coaster. I'm gonna sell that. I think flashback is gonna be around for a little while. Boomerang coasters just don't generally get like completely scrapped in the Six Flags chain. And then I mean the fact that they didn't remove it with Goliath, I think is pretty telling. Because theoretically, if they wanted to, they could have gotten rid of both of those and freed up this even bigger plot of land, but they didn't. And I think that there's a reason for that, so I am going to sell that. Let's see. Did I hear that King's Dominion laid off full time? Yes. So there is no more Winterfest at King's Dominion, and they went on a massive layoff run. Actually, those layoffs have extended to Carowinds. I believe there was an article that just came about that recently, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see that at other Six Flags parks as this sort of thing seems to just be happening around in several different places, and this is a merger, so lot of factors there. Obviously, unfortunate to see. Just in terms of, I hope these people can get back on their feet and get work. And then obviously the removal of events is unfortunate as well. In the case of King's Dominion with Winterfest, but unfortunately, that is the reality of the world sometimes. So, not ideal, unfortunately. Vekoma will eventually produce their own take on a single rail, buy or sell. I think I'm going to sell. I don't really see much point in why they do it. I mean, RMC has a single rail. You have Intamin, obviously now has their own take. SNS, which they're under the same parent company. SNS is trying to get theirs up off the ground. So I think it's going to be a sell from me. Yeah, I don't care about the timeline. I don't think they're gonna try it. They have a pretty varied ride catalog and ride model catalog as is, so I think we'll be okay there. They'll be okay there. But any questions? I'll probably answer them in the next few minutes here. Next 3 minutes before I wrap up the stream. So any last questions you have, put them in chat, and we'll go from there. Trying to think if there's any other things I want to mention before the end of the stream. Oh wait, actually there is. So for those of you who've been watching a while, you may have noticed the style of the thumbnail for this stream was a lot different than the previous ones. I'm just trying to figure out I wanted to change the style, but I'm still figuring out what exactly it's going to look like for the future. But if you either want to let me know in chat or in the comments, if you're watching afterwards, what you think of the new one, just in comparison to how it looks to the previous. If you want change from the previous, just like kind of feedback when it comes to the thumbnails, let me know. So I can just have a better idea of what to do. That could potentially be helpful. That's going to be the plan. Let's see. Buy or sell video game adaptations for roller coasters. Yes. I think video game theming, like rides and coasters and just attractions and maybe lands as we're seeing, I think that's going to become a lot more common. I think it is probably like one of the next big trends in the industry. You obviously have Super Nintendo World, which exists at the Universal parks. Donkey Kong Country just opened at Universal Studios Japan. Heck, even at their haunts, they're incorporating video game IPs like Last of Us. maybe Five Nights at Freddy's gets incorporated at some point in the future. I'm actually surprised it hasn't. So, and then you got Minecraft lands going to Merlin Parks as well. And I mean, video game lands aren't like they've existed previously. Like we've had Angry Birds lands. And we've had the spinning coaster Alton Towers has been themed to Sonic the Hedgehog. It's not like a completely new thing, but I think we're definitely going to see more of it. So I will absolutely buy that. Um, Heck, Uncharted as well. Actually, you could almost throw in there, even though I think the coaster's based on the movie. But anyways, still, so throw that in there as an example as well. I'll answer the coaster one before I get back to Evans. These will be the last two questions I answer, unless someone gets any in before I get to the before I answer these two. Buy or sell, Canopy Lake gets a Gerstlauer bobsled coaster, and Mark gets it as the first Gerstlauer bobsled coaster in North America. So interesting thing here is, it got leaked a little while ago that Oaks Amusement Park in Portland, Oregon, had some sort of like, I think potential plans for a Gerstlauer bobsled. I forget who found it. It was found within the last few months. Don't know if that's actually going to go anywhere. But just for the reason that we actually now have a park that that's actually on the table, I'm going to sell it. Also, it's just I think a little too specific. And I don't really know how marketing it as the first Gerstlauer bobsled coaster is going to do anything for them. I don't think anyone's going to care. So I don't think they would actually advertise that, because there's not really a point. Only enthusiasts would know that's what it is. I think the nice aspect of it, of those kinds of rides, are more so that they can fit in pretty unique plots of land that, and they give a different ride experience than, say, like a traditional Wild Mouse, or some other attractions you could put in. So I think those are, if an American park gets one, it's probably going to be because they just have a unique land situation. That's the kind of ride they want, which is why Oaks Park, I'm okay. I could see that, and I'd root for it, honestly. I'd love to see some Gerstlauer bobsled coasters in North America. And if Canopy gets it, great. If Oaks Park gets it, great. I don't care. I just want to see some. That'd be pretty cool, because I've heard great reviews of them otherwise. So there we go. I will get to the Falcons question. I just want to get to the other ones first. Any plans to come east and check off a bunch of those anticipated American coasters? Concrete plans, no. Well, there's a very high chance I end up going to IAPA again this year. So, and I would I just, if I could get to Busch Gardens Tampa, that would be really nice. Like I said, it's just kind of driving me crazy that I've been to Florida twice and have not been to Busch Gardens Tampa. I think I have even more regret now, in some senses and in some ways. Because if when I went last time, I would have ridden Kumba, which now I'm am I even going to be able to ride that? So, there would at least be that one. And then I would do Epic Universe, even though that wasn't on the list. But, outside of that, no concrete plans. But you never know. Sometimes, some of the trips I've done, or trips that formulate, are things that I didn't see coming, at the beginning of the year. So, we'll see. But ideally, at least Busch Gardens Tampa. Let's see, buy or sell. We will see greater or equal amount of removals from Six Flags for 2025 to 2026. So Um, I think this is gonna be a buy. I think there's still quite a few rides that haven't yet been removed that we're gonna find out about. um, I mean, we're already at two already for this year, um, and I expect we'll see several more. So I will buy it for sure. Unfortunately. Alrighty, that brings me to the final question from Coaster Evan. What would I do with the Falcons quarterback situation? Like basically put me in the GM's chair, I guess, in this situation. I mean, Michael Penix is the unquestioned starter, obviously. He looked very promising, and I'm very excited to see how he continues to play and develop because he looked really good in his few games. Not perfect, obviously, but definitely showed a lot of flashes. And that Panthers game, he was, even though I wasn't able to see it live, he was absolutely on fire. So um, even though it's against a bad defense, still, obviously, you love to see that. And his arm talent is insane. So I'm very excited for Penix. As for Kirk Cousins, I've actually seen some interesting conversations with um, there's a few channels I watch that they've talked about the situation, and I think they're probably going to release him like pretty quickly, probably close to free agency, or I imagine because that's probably what they're gonna do. But if it's me, I actually would hold on to him basically for the entire off season and wait for some team to basically have a quarterback who gets hurt or they don't get their quarterback and try to trade him and get them to pay any sort of really. I don't expect that the pick return would be anything that great, but it's more so if they can take a portion of the contract, that would be ideal. The only risk is I think if they keep him after, I believe it's June 1st this year. There's like they may lose 10 million in 2026. So that'd be the one risk. But I mean, they owe him so much money for this year that I think that would be worthwhile to try to hold him and see if a team in a situation would come up. The only thing that makes this tricky is Kirk Cousins would have to agree on the trade, but it's not like that. It's not like he has much leverage in this situation either. I mean, he's gonna demand his release, right? But he doesn't really actually. The Falcons don't have much incentive to do so. So they can play hardball with him if they want to, and honestly, I think that's what I would do. And fine, and actually, the other thing too is if he, so long as he's okay with being the backup, if the Falcons just decide to keep him and hold on to him, that's fine. I mean, you could have honestly worse backups than him. So if this like bleeds into the season, that's fine because I mean they're gonna have to spend extra money to get a new backup anyways. Is the other aspect of it. So if they were to get rid of him or release him, if you trade him away and you can relieve some of that money, then great. But otherwise, like there's not really much reason not to keep him. So I mean the most he can do is refuse. But then I think if he refuses to play, he gets like money taken out of his money would go back to the Falcons. So I just play hardball and keep him as long as as long as I can for this upcoming season. But knowing the team, they're not going to do that. So and it would be a potentially ugly situation to do it, but it is what it is. It's an ugly situation to begin with, so oh well. But that'll wrap up the stream. Apologies for those of you who are not like NFL fans or anything on the long explanation, but it was a good question, so I wanted to answer it. But as I mentioned, pretty much that's going to wrap up the stream. Um, YouTube content probably is going to be pretty inconsistent the next few months, but hopefully we can get a stream out here and there. Like I said, hoping to get guest streams back into the fold. Um, and then Instagram content will still keep going in terms of like I'll still keep posting the news on there. Um, and there should be other updates on there as well. So if you haven't followed me there yet, make sure to. Um, but with all of that out of the way, thank you all for watching, and I will see you all next time here on Coaster Hour. See you all.